Hi, I was kind of wanting to make a diary for myself, my family, and anybody else who might be interested, kind of listening to events and stuff that's been happening in my life lately. The biggest thing was 6 weeks ago I was diagnosed with brain cancer, which uh, which is certainly not the best news. Uh, Long story, real short, is it could be a lot worse. They make a lot worse things than what I have, and God's blessed me that I don't have that. But it's not the best news. But this could take a little while. I don't know, I might do a few videos, but it's going to try to talk to kind of sequence events up to my surgery, maybe a little bit of the surgery itself. Uh, about 4 months ago, I started having real small headaches. I was thinking it was probably caffeine related, so I'd buy a coffee. Sometimes it would make the small headaches feel a little better, sometimes not. And eventually the headaches got a little bit worse, but another thing that started happening is my vision. My eyes would just blur for a minute or so and then be just fine. But yes, a couple of months ago, the headache started getting really, really bad. So that's where I finally made an appointment to my general practitioner. Have a real nice clinic here. We're able to make an appointment for like 7 o'clock at night. So after work, I went there, and luckily the doctor was on the ball, and he sent me to get a CAT scan at a clinic the next morning. So I went to the clinic, got a CAT scan, and you could kind of tell something was odd because it was a little bit of time after the CAT scan. CAT scans only take about 5 minutes, so really not that big of a deal. But talking to a nurse, she says the radiologist on staff, who I never did meet, which I thought was kind of odd, said that they did see something, and it was real vague, I believe, and handed me a note and a CT of the scan to go back to my general practitioner. So I went back there. He apparently read the note. He didn't have the ability to read the CT or that or the knowledge for it to matter. But more or less it says we see something in your brain that shouldn't be there. So he made the right call again and sent me straight to the emergency room. And so still didn't quite fully understand what was happening. But so me and my wife, Mary Catherine, we started driving to the emergency room via Wendy's. We got a double cheeseburger as the last meal. But getting to the emergency room, cut through a lot of red tape having the letter that was supposed to give to a triage nurse, kind of give them a heads up on what's happening. And they admitted me into the ICU right off the bat, and more or less was prepping me for surgery. And I met my neurosurgeon then, a real nice guy, Dr. Schwartz. And more or less they needed more information. So they did another CAT scan. Once again, a real simple thing. It's a 5-minute deal. But needed to do an MRI. MRIs are a lot better at looking at the brain. CAT scans are more for looking at the skull. So it was like 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night, and the first night there that I go to get an MRI. And I definitely had the B team operating on me at the MRI group. The tube is much smaller than a CAT scan, and you just barely fit in there. You got to turn yourself into a tube like this to fit in there. But it was odd because the sequence, come to find out, was that their performance was out of order. But also, when they actually started doing the MRI, started getting zapped in like my lower chest, upper abdomen, and like the same frequency, you hear humming and stuff. Feels zapping myself, and it's like this ain't right. So they give you a bulb to squeeze. I squeeze that bulb, and they come out. I tell them about that, and they have no idea what's going on. They have no idea why that's happening. Luckily, somebody was there, wise enough to say, let's call it, and we'll regroup and we'll talk about it tomorrow. And neurosurgeon, I see him in the morning. Is more or less, before I can go in there, before I can do anything, we gotta have a picture. We gotta have an image. You gotta have to have an MRI. So went to do it again in the same morning, and much better group. Everything just flowed just fine, real simple, and as easy as can be. So then the neurosurgeon has the MRIs that he needs and the scans he needs, and talking to me, and I don't know why, but he wanted to consult with other surgeons. about my case, which doesn't make you feel real good. But I never found out why. But they wound up sending me home for a few days, and which was all right. They put me on some steroids called Decadron, and I'll probably talk about those later because they're a blessing that they probably saved many lives, but the side effects are really, really bad. Anyway, they sent me home with steroids to shrink the swelling. Actually, got rid of the headaches too, and it was really helpful. But I had an appointment with him the next Monday, and more or less the consultation that he had with the other surgeon was, why on earth did you let this guy go home? Because apparently the MRIs didn't look too good. The tumor was fairly large at that point, but the good thing and the reason why I was able to send me home because I was talking, walking just fine like I am right now. But because of that, it was Monday's appointment. He had staff surgery on Wednesday. So that Wednesday, we go in real early in the morning and go straight to prepping for surgery. And I shaved my head, washed myself in this microbial, some whatever soap to cut back on bacteria. And they shaved special parts of my head, and they put little placards or little bitty dots to mark on my head. And they did another CAT scan, and that CAT scan was to assist the surgeon in actual marking the image in reference to those points, and they used that during the surgery. And they got me into surgery pretty quick. The surgery itself lasted 7 hours, which is unusually, it can be a much longer for craniopathies, I guess is the name for it. But it was only 7 hours. It wasn't that long as far as they go. Initially, he said he got at least or more than 50% out, which I was a little disappointed in. But luckily, they took a post-operative MRI, and they say he got it to at least 80 to 90% out, which is much better. Unfortunately, with this style, you can never get 100% out because it's intertwined with regular brain cells. So if they get it all out, then you're cancer-free, but you're also in a coma for the rest of life. So don't want that. So they get as much out as they can, and then they do the rest with treatment later on. But the surgery went as well as it could have. Got a whole lot of tumor out, and you don't necessarily leave the surgeries as you went in them. There was a possibility that I wouldn't be able to talk. There's a possibility that I'd go blind in my left eye. Possibility that I would lose smelling. So I've already lost smelling in my left nostril, but I could have lost it in my right as well, but that didn't happen. And we call those deficits out of surgery, and for the most part I don't have any, so which is another blessing, big blessing. And so the surgery went great. The surgery itself, the hospital stay was absolutely horrible. Could not stand any of the nurses. The biggest complaint I had is I would be talking about a symptom, and I get two words in, and then they would finish the sentence for me, tell me what my symptom was and why I had it. And it wasn't just one nurse; it was just every single one of them was doing that. You can just tell that they were doing it for a long time, you know. And yeah, heck, they're probably telling me what my symptoms really are, and they probably were right. But it was definitely aggravating. But they wind up like every hour or two, they're checking you, they're asking you to close your eyes, hold your hands up, make sure one hand doesn't start dropping, make sure your strength on both sides is the same. They're checking your eyes and doing this like every hour or two for the first 3 days, so you can never sleep. And I went 3 days without sleep, more or less, like a POW camp. But they're all doing that to more or less make sure you don't have bleeding in your head, which I guess I'm glad they did do. But I guess I can talk more about that later. That's enough for now, and I guess I'll talk to y'all later.